We were a dot-com darling. Guys like us who were in our late 20s, early 30s, going from being worth, what's in our wallet to being worth $150 million each. Sell me the majority of the company or take my 30-day resignation. As much as a growing dot-com darling company was, like you said, everybody knew who Hydrogen Media was. On the way up, it's one story. On the way on down, it's a completely different story. On the way down is when are they going out of business or when are they filing bankruptcy?
The guy that's already a great golfer is hitting a lot of balls.
That's correct. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yep. So
he's already there.
You're never not polishing, right? You're always polishing. You're not resting on your laurels. Because I might listen to a little bit of Howard Stern's in the morning on my way in for a little bit of entertainment. And here's a guy who's makes $110 million a year. Consistently preached there's not a day he doesn't think about he's going to lose it all. I had a company of 225 employees go down to 11.
But the other Gil Nickel story is around the time that I sold him the car, or after. I think I was looking for another one for him. And I think we sold it to his Montana corporation, as a matter of fact. I'm reading a book by Brock Yates called Cannonball. And I'm feeding my son Jackson a bottle on the couch. And I'm reading this Cannonball book. And at whatever chapter I'm at, it says, and Gil Nickel came in second or third place in the 450 SEL.
Jeff Stearns, connected through cars. If they're bigwigs, we'll have them on the show. And yes, we'll talk about cars and everything else. Here he is now, Jeff Stearns.
So the reason I want to bring up Hydrogen Media is I don't want to make this the losing venture hour.
Yeah.
But first of all, it was a very gutsy and goal-oriented thing that you took on that I don't want to say you were underprepared for, because I don't really know what happened. That didn't go the way you wanted, but there's got to be a couple lessons to take out.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, the predecessor of my company today was a company called Hydrogen Media, and we were a dot-com darling, right? So we started the company in 1996 as a website design and development company, charging $500 for a website. Fast forward to 3 years later, 1999, we went from 3 employees to 30. We're charging $7,500 for a website. And I had a couple partners, and all of a sudden we started getting approached about, do we want to take our company public? And we raised $14 million, opened 5 offices, 4 in the US, 1 abroad, and we're riding the times of the dot-com bubble. I don't know if we were good in our industry, but we were in our industry. And anybody who was in the industry was on an incoming tide, and it was going in hard and fast. It was a big tide, right? Yep. So we're just riding the wave, growing like crazy. Went from 30 employees to 225 employees in less than 18 months. Filed an S1, hired Deutsche Bank to take us public, waltzing down Wall Street, reading the Wall Street Journal every day and watching companies just like ours go public, watching these guys like us who were in our late 20s, early 30s, going from being worth, what's in our wallet to being worth $150 million each and all kinds of stuff. And we're like, man, are we almost there? And, we were almost there, right? Then the dot-com bubble explodes, it bursts. And then when that burst, the tide went out faster and we could get back, faster than we know how to. And when we were growing so quickly, we were also growing with other companies who were dot-commers who had great ideas, but had no money, and they were leveraging private capital too to grow. When the dot-com bubble burst, all those investors' wallets closed. And so all these people are stuck with an idea, no money. And so in a very short period of time, we had to ask our clients to either pay their balances and prove they could continue to do so, or we needed to cut them off from services. And in about a 2-month period of time, we lost 90% of our client base.
Oh my
God. What doesn't kill you, it makes you stronger. I was the COO of the company when we were going up, but close to the end of the journey, the investors had asked me to take over as the CEO of the company and wanted to shift the leadership team around and wanted to change the direction of the company from this company that thought it was going to go public and be worth bazillions and in a culture of people who were expecting still for a payday when that day didn't exist anytime in the near future, and try to turn this company that was losing a significant amount of money into a profitable business. And so I accepted their challenge, and it was a difficult journey. And at the end of the day, though, we were one of 2% of the agencies in the United States to survive the dot-com bubble. Only 2% of the companies in the internet service space before year 2000 are still in business today. So again, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Those experiences certainly taught me about how I look at raising capital again, how I look at using debt to grow a business, how I look to see about the sources of where new business were coming, and not to be riding a tide that I couldn't own the propulsion of it if the tide decided to shift it sometime down the road. And fortunately, a lot of that's worked out real well. We've grown up to be, an amazing agency, and just recently merged with another agency to be one of the largest, if not the largest, privately held digital agencies here in the United States today, and continuing to grow well and continuing to use those experiences from my early days selling Hyundais to the most recent mistake I probably made last week to continue to try to run a great business.
So when you accepted the challenge to step in the CEO role of this sinking ship, I think what you probably did was you just started at what's the next right step in front of me and just went A and then B, because I think you were learning something because I understand that you have natural entrepreneurship and you have, your IQ, et cetera, but it wasn't all wheelhouse.
Yeah, no, I think, when they asked me to step into it, Jeff, my first answer was, I'm not sure, because to your sinking ship analogy, I really did, have a discussion about, are we the Titanic? Have we already hit the iceberg? And is my job just to arrange the deck chairs to make it look prettier as it goes down? Because I didn't want to sign up for that. And I truly didn't believe I really knew what their thoughts were too, the investors who were asking me to do this. But as I thought about it, we had 225 employees who deserved a paycheck that Friday. And we had clients who made some commitments to us and gave us the vote of confidence that we were going to deliver for them. And they were entitled to get those types of things. And so I told the investors I would do it for 6 months until they found someone to replace me and find a hired gun. And so that's what I agreed to do. At the 6-month mark, I called them and said, hey, listen, guys, I'm kind of surprised I haven't interviewed anybody for my replacement yet. I'm just checking in to see where you're at on all of that. And they said, oh my gosh, you're doing such a great job. We didn't think you wanted to leave the post. I'm like, oh, please don't misinterpret what my expectations are. I have no intention of running this business for a very long period of time either. How much more time do you need? And they'd asked me for 6 more months. And so I'd given them that, and the same thing happened at the 6-month later mark. I said, guys, I know what happened last time. Where are you on this? And they said, you're doing such a great job. And the more we know you, we know Kevin Hourigan's not a quitter. And I said, what was that? And they said, Kevin Hourigan's not a quitter. I'm like, I got to write that down because that may be the best line I've learned in my business career so far. But I gave them an ultimatum: sell me the majority of the company or take my 30-day resignation. And it wasn't a threat. It was real. But we were turning the company around. It just, nobody wanted to take over a losing .com company 6 months or 12 months into the turnaround. It was going to be a difficult sell to somebody. It was going to cost them a lot of money. And again, the coworkers didn't deserve that. The clients who chose to continue to stay really didn't deserve it. And I could get excited about being the owner of the business, but not their hired gun. And so we were able to work out some terms, and I was able to buy 60% of the business from them at that time. And then a few years later, was able to buy 100% of the business from them at a later time. And it worked out well. It was a good transaction. They didn't get all their money back, but they were very happy with the growth that they did get out of it. And it's a good transaction for them. It's a good transaction for me. It gave me the control to be able to navigate the company through the trials and tribulations of the ever-changing digital space. And here we are talking today.
And is that the original company and you changed the name to Bayshore?
Correct. Yep. So at the end of the day, Jeff, it's as much as a growing .com darling company was, like you said, everybody knew who Hydrogen Media was. On the way up, it's one story. On the way on down, it's a completely different story. And you can't imagine what it was like to try to recruit new clients, recruit new coworkers who months earlier, everything being published is this Tampa's Next Tech Data, which is one of our big publicly traded companies here. On the way up, that's what we're being referred to. On the way down is, when are they going out of business or when are they filing bankruptcy? And if you haven't had that kind of press mentioned about your company before, it isn't easy to recruit new clients and recruit new coworkers when the press is publishing that there's a risk of you going out of business or a risk of you filing bankruptcy. I'm proud to say we didn't go out of business, and I'm proud to say we never filed bankruptcy. We were able to work our way through all of that stuff. but I felt like the brand that had so much love and attention to it on the way up had so much tarnish on the way down that it was time to change the brand. Because it wasn't only, it was time to change, but it wasn't who we were either. We weren't these .comers with false beliefs that we'd all become bazillionaires and ride this tide. That wasn't who we are. We were dedicated digital marketers. We're going to help companies by our commitment to help them design and develop the right website and design and develop the right advertising campaigns. And I needed a team of people who were committed to that and not waiting for their stock options to cash in. And I needed clients to know that we had changed too. So it wasn't just changing to get the name away. It was changing to just get the whole who we were is no longer who we are. And the name change was a big way of making that reality.
Okay. So for a little stigma, we changed the name.
Yes.
Good idea. Any idea? Can you tell us what Bayshore Media came out of?
Bayshore Solutions. So it's two parties.
I'm sorry, Bayshore Solutions.
Bayshore Solutions. So, it's a funny story. So I wouldn't call it a branding expert story by any stretch of the imagination, but I had a short window in which I could rename the company. And so Bayshore, we were here in the Tampa market. We were on the corner of Gandy and Bayshore Boulevard. Bayshore is one of the best known pretty streets in Tampa. Everybody knew who Bayshore was. It was very limited thinking because I was sitting there, and Bayshore is such a monumental name for a street in Tampa Bay here that everybody knows Bayshore and thinks up of it. I wasn't thinking about this company who was going to be global or national, because I'll tell you a funny story about doing business in Denver, Colorado is Bayshore Solutions. And then Solutions is, quite frankly, this was, I don't want to call it genius, but at this time, the .com bubble is still exploding. It's still fragmented. It's still everywhere. We could have been Bayshore Web Design. We could have been Bayshore Web Development. We could have been Bayshore SEO. We could have been Bayshore Web Hosting. But I didn't want to tattoo the name of our company to a service that I didn't know if it was going to survive in this breakout of the whole .com bubble burst. And Solutions was very agnostic. And so not knowing where this all would shake out, Bayshore Solutions, Bayshore from Bayshore's Boulevard, Solutions to be very agnostic. So I wasn't limiting where I needed to position the company when we figured out where the opportunities were in the shakeout of the .com bubble burst.
Kevin, excluding me, can you name the three most influential people?
Influential as far as?
Influential, inspirational.
Geez, Jeff, it's hard to find who number 2 and 3 would be. Give me time.
I understand, but it could be someone famous or someone close to you.
Yeah, so I'll tell you this. In my industry, I do pay pretty close attention to 3 quote unquote industry experts that primarily teaching about how to run a better agency. So I pay pretty close attention to a guy named Drew McClellan, a guy named Michael Gass, and another guy whose name is escaping me at the moment. But I do follow some industry experts too, pretty strongly. I also belong to a couple peer groups who, like leadership CEO peer groups who I get together with on a monthly basis, very similar to a 20 group would be in the auto business, where 20 automobile principals spend time together on a monthly or quarterly basis to help share best practices and feel it's not a competitive threat against them. But I do that with 2 different organizations that are digital agency based. One's in a group called YPO, Young Presidents Organization. I know somebody I know probably, Jeff, you've sold quite a few cars, probably guys who are members of YPO. I know that the guy, Nickel, that has the winery out in California was a YPO guy. That's why I had a chance to have a dinner at his house one time. That's one in another group's called Digital Mastermind. So there's definitely some influence inside those communities, not just one particular person, but just the groups in themselves create a lot of influence and a lot of education through their experiences.
Okay, so here's what I find interesting about your answer. And of course, I relate everything to the car dealership. I'm a little bit of a one-trick pony, right? So
sure.
You'd mentioned that there were people at the dealership that worked there a long time that were crushing it, or people at the dealership a long time that were not doing very well at all.
Yes.
This relates. The best basketball player in the world throws the most practice free throws, and the best golfers hit the most buckets of balls, and et cetera, et cetera. And the people that are lower on the board, so to speak, don't practice as much.
Yeah.
So it's an effort thing. So I think that it would be safe to say that you're okay. You're not worrying about where your next meal's coming from. You got a successful business. I think that you're doing as well as you ever hoped that you would do when you were a kid. Like I hope I can get a McLaren as one of my cars.
Sure.
Even if it's a short-term inventory. Still, yet here you are talking about, when I say who are these influential people, you're talking about trainers, teachers,
Coaches.
Right. Mentors.
Yep.
And then when you're talking about your peer group, you're talking about a support group to help you move the ball when you're at the point where a lot of people would say, if I could ever get there, then I've arrived, blah, blah, blah. So here you are, certainly notable. I mean, we've already talked about your credentials at the beginning of the show. You've been recognized by the kind of business you run, by the kind of guy you are, by the kind of CEO you are. And you're talking about how you're still looking for the support to improve. It's the same thing as the guy that's been at the Hyundai store a long time that's doing a phenomenal job because he keeps sharpening his saw. He keeps taking his training. He keeps working. And so you've got all my admiration there.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
Really?
I think, but I think you're right. The guy hits the most balls, it's pretty one of the best golfers. But I think the appetite to continue to learn just still is in my body every day. And, I just love being around really bright, smart people. And I love learning, and it doesn't have to be in my industry. I just love to be around an area where I can be learning from others. It could be learning business stuff. It could be learning personal things. But I think, your appetite to learn and your desire to continue to take in new things to be able to improve, it's a good habit, or it's a good appetite to have, right?
It's a great appetite to have, but I want to change around something you just said. The guy who hits a lot of balls is a great golfer. I'm reversing it. The guy that's already a great golfer is hitting a lot of balls.
That's correct. Yeah, that's true. Yep. So
he's already there.
You're never not polishing, right? You're always polishing. You're not resting on your laurels. And you're talking about, I'm sure you're not worried about your next meal and all those types of things. And sure, a lot of those are true. But something I'll confess on this podcast today is one of my sources of entertainment, 1 or 2 mornings a week on my 20-mile commute from Clearwater Beach to Tampa, Florida every day, is I might listen to a little bit of Howard Stern's in the morning on my way in for a little bit of entertainment. And here's a guy who's, makes $110 million a year, consistently preached there's not a day he doesn't think about he's going to lose it all. And he runs his life in fear one day that he's going to lose it all. And he views that as an unhealthy but yet healthy fear. And, I think, Jeff, I never, ever take for granted anything that's happened so far. And I never want to overestimate how those things could disappear. I had a company of 225 employees go down to 11 in a matter of 9 months, right? I've seen what can happen, right? And I don't ever want to relive that experience. So, continually try to grow, learn, improve so that my risk factor is diminished as best as possible. And it's a healthy appetite or a healthy habit to try to form, because the consequences the other side, are pretty significant.
Well, in the car business, I'd always said, even when running a couple of the largest stores or franchises in the country, is my insecurity is my security.
That's exactly right. And, my father preaches, the car business is a 30-day business, right? You're only as good as your last month, right? And you sell 21 units one month and you're feeling good about yourself. And then all of a sudden March 1st creeps up and you're back to ground zero again.
And no contract, 30 days and no contract.
Yeah. I think my father told me that one of his old stores, that the rule is that, you pretty much could have a job selling for the dealer. And this is in Erie, Pennsylvania, different climate, different community. But back in the day, I think he used to tell me something along the lines like salespeople were pretty secure in their job as long as they do anything wrong criminally or anything that violated any, codes or anything like that, or they weren't bottom man on the totem pole 2 months in a row. And aside of that, you pretty were safe. And they didn't have high turnover rate of salespeople because the last thing they wanted to do is be the bottom person 2 months in a row. They made a dance to the number one person a few months, but they never let it happen 2 months in a row. And it's probably not the best system to have, but it was something I can remember growing up. My dad used to say that they were pretty secure in their job as long as they kept their nose.
I mean, they're certainly a lot more secure than management.
No, that's true.
I mean, if the salesperson does their job every month, management can turn over 50 times in their career.
Yeah, that's true.
Even ownership can turn over. They're never getting rid of a salesperson that's doing a consistent job. Never.
Yeah, that's true.
Because what business doesn't need somebody bringing in business consistently, ethically, not getting in trouble?
Correctly. Right.
None of us are ever getting rid of that guy.
No.
Or gal. So Gil Nickel.
Yes.
I'm so glad that you brought up Gil Nickel.
Yes.
Because we talked about that the other day and I honestly forgot. So
yeah.
Can I share that story?
Yeah.
So if he would have said no right then, folks, I would have just edited it out and then I would have just kept going. So I'd sold Gil Nickel a couple of cars. The way I met Gil Nickel was referred by a good friend and customer at Sarasota Wine Fest. So he was there as a vintner or an owner, right? So at the Wine Fest, we had cars on display, and people would be at like in a giant tent at like wedding banquet kind of tables, and there'd be a vintner from whatever winery there.
Right.
So one of my customers who's a wine nut down in Sarasota says, "Hey, Jeff, I want to introduce you to Gil Nickel." I don't drink anything. So I didn't know a nickel from a schmickel. I'm just at Wine Fest trying to hopefully bump into someone a little tipsy, let's be honest, with their wallet hanging out like in the Corniche sitting on the putting green. What can I tell you? So completely, I would still give them their 3-day right of rescission, but that's why I'm there. So I meet Gil, and his interest in me and my interest in him is he wants a Continental, not a Bentley Continental GT, but the prior Continental R, Continental T platform car. That's what he wanted.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The coupe.
He wanted a T, right?
Yep.
So terrific. I take his information, et cetera, and I'm looking for cars. And from time to time I get one and call him, or someone offers me one and I call him, and eventually I sell him a car. And a sweet, sweet guy. You had dinner with him. So, you can't, he's just nice. That's all there is to it. Soft spoken. So when we're done with the deal, there's 2 stories in this. He sends me a case of wine, half red, half white, of Farniente.
Farniente.
I don't drink. So it's holiday time comes up. I probably had the case sitting there untouched other than company coming. I took one out for like 3 months. So it's Christmas. I'm giving one to the lawn guy. I'm giving one to the garbage guy. Giving one to my handyman. And I got a buddy who's a wine snob over. He's a dermatologist. He's over for dinner, him and his wife. And he's like, "What's that over there?" And I'm like, I sold a guy, I guess he has a winery. I sold a guy a car, and he sent me this case of wine, and you want one? He's like, "How many can I have?" So I guess, it was like 120 a bottle, or
easily.
Oh, easily. Okay. I don't know at the time. Anyway, he told me that then. Okay.
Yeah.
So that story. But the other Gil Nickel story is around the time that I sold him the car, or after. I think I was looking for another one for him. And I think we sold it to his Montana corporation, as a matter of fact. I'm reading a book by Brock Yates called Cannonball. And I'm feeding my son Jackson a bottle on the couch. And I'm reading this Cannonball book. And at whatever chapter I'm at, it says, and Gil Nickel came in 2nd or 3rd place in the 450 SEL, et cetera, 1971 450 or something like that. And I see my customer's name in the book. So I immediately just dial him, and he answers the phone. He's like, "Hey, Jeff, I'm in a meeting right now. So if you found a car or something, I'll just call you later." And I said, "No, Gil." I says, "I've been bragging to everyone that I sold," because now I knew I sold, the owner of Farniente. I says, "You didn't even tell me you were in the Cannonball Run." I said, "I wouldn't even be talking about the winery." And he's like, "Hang on a second." And I guess he walks out of his meeting and he goes to the hallway or whatever. And then he starts not whispering. And he's like, "And we would have won that thing if this thing didn't happen with the 450. And he went on for 10. I wish he was alive now, but he went on for 10 minutes. So it's so funny. He couldn't leave his business meeting. God knows he was in a boardroom or something.
Right, exactly.
But when you bring up Cannonball Run, he's like leaving everyone hanging. He don't care. Yeah. So
that's so cool. It's
a wonderful Gil Nickel story. So Kevin, what is something somebody doesn't know about you?
So what is something doesn't know about me? So Jeff, I would tell you, I typically answer the answer the same way. So that would be something that people are starting to know about me. But something that people don't know about me. I had such a good run with my car dealer license years ago that I am trying to figure out how to go get it done again with the limited amount of time I have. I'm going to try to go get my car dealer license back. So I'm looking for a warehouse again that's going to qualify for the Florida Department of Motor Vehicles. And I'm looking to, I think I looked, it was 887 pages of content that you have to read before you go take the test. Or I'm looking for somebody that wants to, who's looking for a partner who can help subsidize some of the real estate and insurance costs. But I've got the itch to do it again. I got out of it I had it for, again, 13, 14 years. I got out of it because I felt like I'd done everything I wanted. I'd owned almost every car I wanted to. And I wasn't averaging $1,750 a car anymore either. And my hobby wasn't writing big losses, right? It wasn't fun writing big losses, right? And I just didn't have the time to commit to it. And it just wasn't the same fun anymore as it was when I got started. But it's been a 7-year hiatus, and I'm ready. I'm excited about trying to get back into it again.
So, and this doesn't mean you've stopped buying cars.
No, not at all.
You just want to go past your limit.
I'm just doing the 3-and-3 program again, but just trying to do that. Exactly.
Excellent. There's one other thing that I wanted to ask you, and
yes,
if you're not comfortable, we can edit the thing.
Sure.
What do you wish somebody knew about you?
Well, that's a good question. That's a really good question. What do I wish somebody knew about me? Jeff, I think that over the years, as I've done business with people and talked to people, and you're trying to build a relationship with somebody, what I do for a living, again, I don't know if I'd sign up all over again, because one of the biggest challenges of what I do differently for a living than what you did when you were selling cars. When you were selling Gil that Bentley Mulliner, he knew what the car was. He knew what color he wanted. He knew kind of the mileage range he wanted. And he knew what was available out there. And he was buying a product, right? And so he knew what he wanted to pay for that product, and he knew what that product needed to be. But he was buying a product like this pen or this iPhone. It's a product. What I do for a living is I sell a service. And selling a service is almost like selling hope, because a person who's buying from me is hoping I'm listening to what they're saying, hoping I'm interpreting correctly what their expectations are, and then vice versa. They're hoping that what they're hearing from me, and when I'm putting in a document that I'm asking them to sign, as well as a check next to that document, they're hoping 3 to 6 months later, I'm going to produce what they're expecting. And it's no fun to sell. It's no fun to buy hope. I don't envy the position of people who buy services from anybody in my industry. They're buying hope. And it's no fun to be selling hope either. But at the end of the day, what I'd like people to know is I truly try to live my day every day with this hope that one day down the road, when I go 6 feet under, someone writes on my gravestone, Kevin Hourigan was a fair person. And I try to live my day every day, just trying to be a fair person, try to be fair to my customers, try to be fair to my coworkers, try to be fair to my family. But, just trying to say, you said earlier, he walks the walk, or whatever that phrase may be. I take it seriously, and just hope as people get to read some of this content or watch some of this content, whatever it may be, listen to some of this content, truly try to, live my life that in a way that at the end of the day, I hope that I'm judged as a very fair person.
Kevin, you are congruent.
Congruent.
You are congruent, because the way you come across and the way you live your life, to my knowledge, and I don't know every single moment of your life, is if you are living for your funeral, and it said at your funeral, look, the guy was just a fair guy.
Yep.
He was fair. He'd give you a fair shake. If you gave him too much money, he'd let you know that he owes you some change.
Sure.
From as long as I've known you, and I think it's 35 God-forsaken years.
Yeah, you're accurate.
Very close to that.
You're accurate. You're spot on.
God, 33, 34.
Yeah.
I've never known you to be any other way. I mean, there's people that say, here's what I'd like, but they don't live it. You live it, like I said earlier. And something else interesting that I find about you is, even though you've achieved some level of financial success for a while now, you don't stop with your support group. You don't support with who you're following to take mentorship from.
Sure.
I know you and I have had confidential conversations when I was having some issues in my family, and you were there to listen and provide counsel. The kind of counsel that you gave was wholesome. It wasn't one-sided. It wasn't about winning. It wasn't about winning for the sake of someone losing. It was certainly about winning for the sake of it being a win for everybody. And then hearing your own empathic story about some trials you had in your own family and what you did to address it was always about a holistic, ethical, and proper way. I mean, that's how I know you when I get to know you. The success that you have in business is well deserved because of like who you are and because of what you know and because of what you made yourself go out and find out when you didn't know.
Sure.
So these are true things that I wanted to say now on tape for you to have forever in
I
case
appreciate that.
I kick on the way home or something.
Yeah. So maybe we play it at my funeral. Okay.
So, Kevin, I appreciate you, obviously, between thinking about your dealer license, between merging with another company to become one of the largest digital marketing agencies in the nation, between worrying about your family that you are worried about, between worrying about your health, that is a thing. That's an important thing. You make sure every day to take care of yourself somehow, because I can see it, and you're doing it for the sake of the people around you so that you could function and keep going. I know what's driving you, right? The why.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's obvious. For you to make time for this, for me, I take as a really big compliment, friendship, and even what you're doing for the people out there that you don't know, that you're willing to give a little piece in case it helps them.
Yeah. I appreciate that, Jeff. It was great to spend time with you, and love your podcast, love your content. I love the interviews that I've watched so far, and I wish you could continued success in this journey as well.
This has been Jeff Stearns, Connected Through Cars.